This is Mrs. Norda. I just want to go over a few things for week 10 with you. Let me pull this over. First of all, this is what we call a map week because by the end of this week, I'm going to go in and check everybody's progress in the course and make sure that you are within 2 weeks of being right on target. So right on target means you're working in week 10, and by this Friday you would do checkpoint 1.3.3. Okay, but you'll get academic meeting a satisfactory progress grade if you're anywhere within 8, 9, or 10, week 8, 9, or 10. So anywhere within here, you get academic meeting because we give you 2 weeks leeway. Okay, because not everybody's going to be exactly at the same place at the same time, but you should be finishing up week 10 this week is where you should be. If you're behind that, if you're in week 7 or 6 or 5, unless you started very late, you would be at academic probation. If you started really, really late into the school year, then that will be considered in your progress. Okay, if you're beyond that, if you're on week 11, which I'm not expecting or hoping that you're on week 11, but some people just work ahead. If you are farther than week 10, you would be at AE, academic exceeding. Okay, hopefully everybody understands that. All of these in blue are lessons that you'll be doing in Compass Learning. All of these green ones, the checkpoints, you have to come back into our classroom over here, the IA classroom, and do them here. This right here, I have clicked on the word conferences just to talk about that for a minute. I did not do a conference last week, but on November 3rd, we did a conference and I went over checkpoints 1.2.3 and 1.3.1. So if you're working on one of those and you have questions, that's the first place that you can go to and watch that conference. Before that, there was, let's see, this one was from 11:15 to 11:45, but this one was recorded. I would go to the 10:30 one. And then there is, before that, the 10:30 to 11 one, 1.21 and 1.22. This week, we have a conference from 10:30 to 11, and I believe I'm going to add one from 11:15 to 11:45 for those of you that cannot make this one. And I will go over 1.31 and 1.32. After this, we'll be caught up and we'll just do one checkpoint a week. All right? So let's go and look at modules. So we have our Compass Learning, we have our Welcome to Class, we have our Everyday Resources. This is your teacher contact information. You can get a hold of me through information there. And then we come down to where the checkpoints are. Now, all of these that are not green, you're not going to see them. I see them on mine, but you don't see them on yours. They're actually these things over here. Okay, so week 9 was checkpoint 1.3.2. So many of you may still be on this one. So I'm going to do a quick preview of it, and then we'll go over it in depth or an example similar to this in depth at the conference on Thursday. So this is about using decimals, adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing with decimals. And it's about the 2 people that swam and they got the race in this many seconds, and Francis made the race in this many seconds. And you have to answer several questions. What was the difference in the times? So you have to think, well, what operation do I use to find the difference? Add, subtract, multiply, divide. If it's minus, if it's subtract, what do I subtract? And then you have to decide who was the fastest. And make sure you say either Julie was the fastest or Francis was the fastest. And write out the math expression. And tell me, what do you really need to remember when you're adding or subtracting decimals? So remember, it has to do with the place values. So sometimes you have to add like a 0 out here beyond to make them have the same number of place values. This has 3 tenths, hundredths, thousandths, and this should have to have 3 tenths, hundredths, thousandths also to be able to add or subtract them well. Okay, so tell me about all of that in your answer. Number 2 is an estimate. You're estimating this, and then you're supposed to answer, how did you choose the numbers to round to? And do you think it's more or less, and why? Make sure you answer all those questions. So here it's like 5 and 92 hundredths. Is that closer to 5 or 6? This is 3 and 85 hundredths. Is that closer to 3 or 4? Do your estimate. Tell why you chose what you did. Okay, the last one is finding the quotient. Quotient is the answer to a division problem. So you'll see division here. Notice that this is a decimal and this is a decimal. So there's something you have to do with a division problem when there's 2 decimals. I want you to tell me what that something is. Okay? And what those important steps are to do. And then I want you to tell me the answer and how you got it. Okay, that is 1.3.2. And let's look at 1.3.3. Just a really quick overview. Okay, 1.3.3, I'll do a preview. I know my page looks a little different from yours. Remember, I'm looking at a teacher page. So on this one, you're going to do this kind of question of with rounding. You're going to buy some apples at $1.79 a pound, and Olivia bought 2.3 pounds. So how much did she pay if her answer is rounded to the nearest cent? So first of all, you're going to have to find out how much she would pay, and then if it goes out into the thousands or the 10,000ths, then tell me you have to round it back to the hundredths to get to the nearest cent. Okay, but how are you going to find this? Do you add these, subtract these, multiply these? What do you do? Tell me how you did it and how you figured it out. Make sure you read all the questions. Okay, this one is about decimals that either repeat or terminate. Here's an example of one that repeats. It goes 16161616, and you can write it with a line on the top of the 16, but sometimes that's hard for us to do online. It takes more tools. Examples of fractions with terminating decimals, that means they come to an end and stop. They don't repeat and repeat. So this is an example of a repeating one. This is an example of a terminating one. I want example of fractions with terminating decimals. I want 2 of them here, 2 terminating ones, and 1 repeating one here. Okay? And the final question, that gas sells for $2.39 per gallon, and he gets 12.6 gallons. First of all, you have to decide what are you going to do with these numbers to find your answer. Once you find the answer, then you're going to round it to the nearest cent, because you don't pay thousandths of a cent or thousandths of a dollar. You only pay to hundredths of a dollar. And you're going to show what operation you used, and if you had to round, explain it. Read all those little parts. Okay? We'll go over these more in depth on Thursday. If you need more, you know how to get a hold of me. You can always click on the inbox and send me a message, or you can send a request for help. Whatever you need, I'm here to help you. Okay? Have a good week.